All right, this is Masada. This is a remote location on the Dead Sea. You can see the Dead Sea there in the background. This location was a palace and fortress built by Herod the Great. The word Masada literally means fortress in Hebrew. Herod the Great built this in 33 BC. He was in a good relationship with the Roman government, but was not convinced that would stay that way. And I think he was concerned the Romans might get to a place where they would become enemies of him, and he wanted to have a place to retreat. And so he built this location at Masada. I don't think he ever came here, but he built this location at Masada. But it's more familiar as a historical place is not that Herod built this fortress here, but in 70 AD, the Roman government came here to defeat a series of about 1,000 zealots. The Roman government invested 3 years to build this huge siege ramp you see from the base there all the way up to the top of the mountain. And you can see here the details of the siege ramp where there's rocks and dirt and put wooden structures in there to hold it together. And they took 3 years to build this siege ramp. They literally lived out in this area. You see here the archaeological remains of the Roman location where they stayed those 3 years while they were building during the day. They would spend the nights here, and they spent 3 years. And so this group of about 1,000 zealots, what happened is in 70 AD, Titus comes to Jerusalem, the Roman general, and he spends a couple of years sieging the city and eventually taking over the getting inside the city wall, and ultimately the temple itself is destroyed and burned to the ground, and many of the rebels in Jerusalem were killed by the Roman government. But about 1,000 people, men, women, and children, escape, and they come out here to Masada, which is about 30 to 40 miles south of the city of Jerusalem, in an extreme remote location. It's remote now. I can't imagine how remote this would have been during the time of Herod the Great and the time of the Zealots. So Herod the Great built this in 33 BC. 100 years later, these about 1,000 zealots retreat here. And they retreat here with the intent that they're going to rebuild the Jewish culture and one day get strong enough and able enough to go back to Jerusalem and retake the city and rebuild the temple. And so it's a restoration project. They come here to make life and to hopefully rebuild and be able to go back and take the city of Jerusalem. And this is why Titus, I think, takes 3 years. You might think, well, Titus would just say, well, it's 1,000 people in a remote location. Who cares? But I think their intended mission of restoration of Jerusalem became known to Titus. And so, but the original construction is by Herod the Great. And we see here's the top of Masada. There's two sides to this. There's a western and an eastern side. On the eastern side, here to the right, this is where Herod the Great had a palace and living quarters. On the far left, there's a bathhouse and a gymnasium and a sauna and other living quarters and storage facilities. And it's quite an impressive complex. You can see some of the storage facilities here. There's a synagogue here. In addition to that, there's a very detailed construction. You see this black line here in this picture. That's the ruins they found, and then the rocks all around it they rebuilt back up to get it to its original height. This is the fresco on the floor of a Byzantine church that was built here around 500 AD. That's the last real inhabitants here is during that time period. And so the Roman government uses the siege ramp and these siege tools, and they destroy, they get to the top of Masada. But Masada itself is a very beautiful archaeological dig. You see these fresco type tiles on the floors. These are very ornate. These are very decorative. Also, in addition to that, Herod the Great built a overlook that is on the far western side of this mountain and down a little. And so this the video here is us taking a walk down to that landing. It's an overlook over the Dead Sea. You can just imagine Herod the Great's he didn't ever do this, but his intent would be that they could sit out and take in the views at sunrise or sunset and take in the views of the Dead Sea. Now, the Dead Sea is the lowest elevation in the world. It is at 1,200 feet below, 1,200 feet below sea level. And currently it's so low that the Dead Sea is actually two different lake bodies. One to the north is the bigger one, and it runs about 30 miles, and it's about 90 feet deep. So it's quite deep. And then the shallower one to the south of that, it's not very deep at all. And it's now a land mass between these two. But back during Herod's day, the water came almost all the way up to the base of Masada, the mountain. You'll see here in a minute now there's a road that runs from the base of Masada. There's a parking lot on that end of it. We parked on the siege ramp side. The other side has a cable car that can take you up onto Masada. Our group decided that we would walk up the siege ramp, and we actually didn't go to the cable car side at all. But there's a road, a parking lot, and a cable car, and a road that runs. But during that runs from there, the western side of the Dead Sea, and it runs all the way up to Jericho, the city of Jericho. And we didn't go that direction, but up that side you can walk it. There's a kind of a switchback that you can walk, and very carefully. It's steep. Most people, though, take the cable car up. But back during Herod the Great's time, the Dead Sea was so deep that it came all the way up to the base of this mountain. And so you can see here in this clip here, you can get a little bit of a glimpse of the Dead Sea and get a sense of the beauty of this location from where Herod had built or had them build this overlook. Now, while we were there, they're reconstructing parts of it. There's a facade on the front of this overlook that was quite ornate. It was painted and decorated. And what they did was they took the original, and it's now at the Jerusalem Museum after archaeologists had worked the site. And now what they're doing is they're trying to reconstruct some of these areas to their original appearance. And so while we were there, there's artisans out who are painting and redoing the wall that sits at the mountain at the overlook. And so there's a lot of design work. There's a lot of redoing of these things. There is a synagogue, like I said, on the top of the Masada. This synagogue was one of about 8 that predate the fall of the temple in 70 AD and the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD. There's that restoration project. I'll show you a picture of it here in just a second. And so this is the top of this overlook, looking out over the Dead Sea. And so you can see there, I'll show you a picture of that in a minute. And then here's the restoration project. This guy's painting and restoring all this. But there is a synagogue here, and the group that was part of the 1,000 zealots that retreated here used that synagogue as part of their worship. And so anyway, this is Masada. It's an incredible archaeological site and has significance historically. The Masada stand wound up being kind of the rally cry of the Jewish people. Even to today, it's built into some of the songs of children, is one day to get back to Jerusalem and to restore the city of Jerusalem the way it once was. And that became part of the rallying cry of Jewish people all over the world. And as Israel was restarted as a nation around 1948, about 600,000 Jews moved back to Jerusalem, but the Masada story stayed with them. Now, the Masada story doesn't end great for the people there. The 1,000 zealots, they're surrounded. The Romans are breaching the wall or about to breach the wall, and they make the decision that instead of allowing the Romans to crucify them and torture them and take their women and children as slaves, that they would instead all agree to commit suicide. And so just a day or two before the Romans breach the wall, they commit suicide. There was a couple of people who hid out in the group of 1,000, and we get the record of their last few days from these couple of individuals who said, we're not doing the suicide thing, and they hid out. And so as the rest of the group committed suicide, these few were found by the Roman government, the Roman soldiers, and they retell their story. And we get the details of this by Josephus, the Jewish historian. So anyway, that's Masada. It's an incredible place, a great location for archaeology and history. Really a stunning place to visit.